All right, so in the next couple videos, we are going to be creating an advanced login app. In this advanced login app, we're going to be having a couple different screens and components. The first screen is going to be a login screen where you can go ahead and enter an existing email and password. From there, you can go ahead and sign in if you want, or if you haven't created an account, you can also go ahead and register a new one. In the register screen, right over here, we're going to have the ability to enter a new name for our user. We're going to create an email for it. We're going to set up the password, and then you can also go ahead and enter a URL for the image of the profile. Once you do that, you can go ahead and sign in. Once signed in, you're going to have this simple screen here that's going to say hello to the name you typed in. You're going to have a visual of the profile you have entered as well, and then you also have the option for a sign out button. There's going to be a couple different components in this using local storage and on top of that, cloud storage as well. Let's go ahead, jump right in, and get started. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Make sure your Android app is up and running just like mine right here. Perfect. Awesome. All right, let's go ahead. Make sure you're in your folder that you want to start creating this project in. Go ahead, let's open up a terminal right now. Awesome. All right, let's go ahead and create the project. I'm going to go ahead and type in an npx create expo app, and then go ahead and give it a name. I'm just going to call this Advanced Auth App. Go ahead and hit enter. Let's let that load. Might take a second or two. I'm going to pause my video while it's loading. All right, looks like it finished up for me. Perfect. All right, let's go ahead and CD into that new folder that was just created. So CD space, and then drag and drop, enter. Perfect. Let's go ahead and open it up. We should have a couple things in here. Looking good. All right, I'm going to go ahead now and type in clear in the terminal. All right, so we're going to add a couple dependencies real quick. First one we're going to do is going to be npm install Firebase. All right, awesome. Go ahead, hit enter on that. And I'm also going to go ahead, tap into the app.js while that's loading. And I'm actually going to go ahead and paste all the different dependencies we're going to be using, just in case you got the spelling wrong. So let me go ahead and copy those real quick. I'm going to paste them right underneath the imports. Perfect. So we're going to be installing each one of these. Awesome. So we got the Firebase one. Perfect. I'm going to go ahead, type in clear again in the terminal. I'm going to go ahead now and do this one. This one's going to be for the React Native async storage. All right. This is what we're going to be using for our local save capabilities. So let's go ahead, put that in there. Make sure you got that in there. All right, that one should be pretty quick. Now I'm going to do the next one. This one's going to be for, again, or actually this one's for the React Native navigation. I'm going to paste that in our terminal again. There we go. Let that load, then we'll do the next one. Awesome. Let's do the next one here. This one is going to be, again, for the navigation, but the stack part. And then let's do the last one. And this one I'm using just because I had a little bit of an error going on. You might not have to use this one, but it doesn't hurt. Just for the React Native gesture handler. All right. Perfect. All right, once you have all those in though, let's go ahead and run the app, make sure everything's working. So I'm going to go ahead and do an npx expo start. All right, looks like mine loaded. Make sure you have that Android app up and running as well. I'm going to go ahead and hit A for Android. First time always takes a little bit. Looks like it's loading. Awesome. All right, looks like no errors. If it failed for you though, go ahead and just close it just like this, and then just reopen it, and it should work the second time if it failed the first. Awesome. Alrighty, that's it for this video. I will see you in the next one. Alright, so in this video, we're going to go ahead and set up all of the Firebase configurations for our login app. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Alright, so this is the official Firebase website. Once you're logged in, you should get a screen like this. Make sure you create an account if you don't already have one. It should be free. So go ahead, jump into here, then go to the add project. Let's go ahead and give our project a name. I'm just going to call mine auth app, just like that. Go ahead, hit continue. Scroll on down here. You can go ahead and disable the analytics if you want to. Go ahead now and hit create project. Let that load. All right, there we go. Let's go ahead and hit continue. All right, so now once we're in the home page, let's go ahead and go to this web. We're going to create a new project. There we go. From here, we give it a name. I'm going to go ahead and just call this again auth app. You can name it the same as the project. It doesn't matter. Go ahead and hit register app. Once created, you can go ahead and scroll on down. Make sure that use npm is selected. Then you're going to have this nice little code snippet here. And the only part that we want to copy is just this part right here. Okay, so go ahead, copy that one section, Control C, continue to console. Awesome. Before we leave this site, we're going to go over here to the left to build authentication. Then once this appears, hit get started. We're going to create an email password authentication. So go ahead and select that one. Make sure this top one is enabled. That's going to be for the email and password. Go ahead and hit save. Awesome. So far, so good. If you missed copying that code snippet I showed you a second ago, you can find it again by going up to here, this little wheel, project settings, scroll on down, and then there it is. So go ahead, recopy it if you need to, Control C. Awesome. Let's go ahead and jump into Visual Studio Code. All right, so before we paste our code, we need to create a spot for it. So in our highest folder right here, I'm going to right click, new file. I'm going to call this firebase.js. Enter. All right, in here you can go ahead and paste that copied code. There we go. Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and add some enters at the top, just like that. Now at the top here, we're going to go ahead and add something. We're going to do an import. Then we're going to add some curly brackets. Inside the curly brackets, we're going to go ahead and put initialize app. I'm going to go ahead and paste mine right there. Make sure you have capital A at the end. All right. Then after those curly brackets, we're going to go ahead and do a from, couple quotes. We're going to do firebase/app, just like that. Awesome. Perfect. So this is going to be initializing our app by using, of course, our current API keys and just other areas that are going to help us log in. All right. Now, right at the bottom, though, underneath our Firebase config, we're going to add something. We're going to add a constant app equal it to initialize app. And then we're going to go ahead, give it some parentheses. Inside those parentheses, we're going to go ahead and set the Firebase config. Perfect. Awesome. And then the last thing we need to do, of course, is export it so we can actually use it throughout our app. So to do that, we're going to type in export default app, semicolon. Awesome. All right. So this is what you have to do if you're going to be using Firebase throughout your app. You're going to have all those key values here. And then, of course, you're going to initialize it and then create the initialization and then export it. All right. Awesome. Go ahead and save that, Control S. Perfect. So far, so good. I will see you in the next video. All right. So in this video, we're going to go ahead and add all of our imports to our app.js file in our login app. Let's go ahead and jump right in. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and click into the app.js right over here. Perfect. All right, let's go ahead and add a couple imports that we're going to be using. So let's go ahead and hit enter right at the top, make some space. So underneath this one here, we're going to go ahead and do an import. Make sure it doesn't auto correct with some extra stuff in there. So for this import, we're going to go ahead and we're going to use the create navigator one. So let's go ahead and pass in some curly brackets. In here, we're going to simply put create stack navigator, and it should auto-populate if you already installed the package, just like that. Awesome. Make sure you don't have an extra curly bracket there. All right, let's go ahead and add the next one now. So the next one is going to be another import, of course. Let's give it some curly brackets. Inside these curly brackets, we're going to go ahead and do a navigation container. Go ahead. There we go, right here. Perfect, navigation container. Make sure it finishes off. You can go ahead, backspace that curly bracket. It's going to be from the @React Navigation /native, just like that. Awesome. Let's go ahead and do the next one now. So this one's going to be, again, another import, but we're not going to be using an import with curly brackets because we're going to be calling a screen that we're going to be making in the next couple videos. And I'm going to call this screen in the future, I'm just going to call it a login screen. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to do a from, and then we're going to give it some quotes, and we're going to do a / because it's going to be in its own folder eventually. I'm going to call that folder screens / and then we're going to call it login screen, just like that. Awesome. All right, make sure you got that there. We're going to be adding this for two other ones now. So instead of typing the whole thing out, I'm just going to copy it, paste it below, and then paste it below again. Now this one here is going to be for the register one. Let's go ahead and add that, register. And then of course, we're going to change the name of the path as well, just right over here. Awesome. All right, and then the one below that one is going to be for the home screen. So let's go ahead and change that, capital H home. There we go. And then right over here as well, capital H home. Awesome. So far, so good. All right. So below that, though, we're going to do another import again. This import is going to be for the async storage, and it should look just like that. Awesome. Perfect. All right, looking good. Now we're going to go ahead and add one more import right underneath that one, import. And this one is, again, going to have curly brackets. This one's going to be for the use state that we're going to be using. So go ahead, type in use state. It should auto-populate the rest. Make sure there's not an extra curly bracket. And then we're going to add one more in here as well for a use effect. So we're going to do a comma, and then we're going to do use effect. Awesome. All right, so far so good. Go ahead and save all that, Control S. In the next couple videos, you will see some of these things in use. Let's go ahead and continue. I will see you next video. All right, so in this video, we're going to go ahead and create all of the functions for our login app in our app.js file. These functions are going to include gathering if our user is logged in or not, so it knows where to direct us. Let's go ahead and jump right in. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So first thing we're going to do, right underneath our little comments we made earlier, we're going to be adding just a specific constant right here. So let's go ahead and add this constant. This is going to be for our stack that we're going to be using for all the navigation. So we're going to do stack, capital S, equal, and then we're going to use that create native or stack navigator, just like that. Perfect. Then we're going to go ahead, give it some parentheses, and do a semicolon. I'm also going to go ahead and make sure my stack word is capital S, just to make it look a little nicer. There we go. Awesome. So make sure you have that there. Make sure it's above that export default right there. Awesome. So now we're going to go ahead and add some more of the functioning. So I'm going to hit enter right here inside our export default function app. All right. So we're going to be adding a couple things here. First thing I'm going to do is create some constants. So I'm going to make a constant value. Then inside of here, I'm going to call this saved log in values, just like that, comma. Then I'm going to do set, and then I'm going to put saved login values. The only difference is I'm going to, of course, capitalize the saved right there, just so we know that it's from there. Perfect. Now let's go ahead, do an equal, and then in here, we're going to go ahead and do useState, and then we're going to give it an empty parentheses with empty array in it. So regular brackets inside of those parentheses. Awesome. All right, semicolon to close that. All right, let's go ahead and create another constant now. Give it some brackets. All right, we're going to go ahead and call this loading, capital A app, comma, and then we're going to go ahead and do set loading app. Awesome. Then we're going to go ahead, do an equal sign, again, a useState. In this useState, we're going to go ahead and by default, we're going to set it to true. So when the app turns on the first time, we want to set it to true. Awesome. All right, so make sure you have these two in here, and you're going to see what we're going to do with them in just a sec. All right, so right below this, now we're going to go ahead and use that use effect. All right, so go ahead, do use effect. We're going to go ahead, parentheses, empty parentheses inside of it, equal, less than. Open it up with some curly brackets. Awesome. And then right at the end of that curly bracket, we're going to put a comma and an empty array. So the use effect, basically what's going to happen, every time we open the app, it's going to go ahead and run everything in here if we have nothing in the variables. All right, it's only going to run once though. So we're going to go ahead inside of here though, we're going to use a function called get data, and we're going to create this in just a second because of course, make sure it doesn't do that. Make sure it just says get data, empty parentheses, semicolon. Awesome. All right. So of course, when we first start the app, we want to get the data and then verify whether or not our user saved its information. All right. So now let's go ahead and do another use effect. Parentheses, empty parentheses. All right. Then we're going to go ahead, equal, less than, curly brackets, open it up. And then for this use effect, we're going to go ahead and only want it to activate when we have a value change of the saved login values. So go ahead, save login values. Awesome. All right, but inside this use effect, what we're going to be running is we're going to go ahead and just do a simple if statement. Inside this if statement, we're just going to do saved log values dot length, and then we're going to go ahead, exclamation point for not equals 0. So we're just checking to make sure it's not an empty array. That's all this is doing. All right, awesome. Go ahead, keep that open. And then just a simple console log is what I'm going to put inside of this just so we can track and make sure everything's working okay. Awesome. So console log, give it some parentheses. Inside those parentheses, we're going to go ahead and just output the saved login values, just like that. This isn't necessarily necessary, but I like to have it just to keep track of what's going on. Awesome. All right. So underneath that use effect, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add some more. Now we're going to add the actual get data function. All right. This is going to be an async function. Async, because we're going to be waiting for it to have some things happen inside of it. So async function, let's give it the name of get data. Let's give it some parentheses. Let's go ahead, open it up. Perfect. All right, I'm going to scroll down a little bit. So inside this get data, what we're going to do first is we're going to go ahead and do a try. Open that up. Inside the try, we're going to go ahead and create a constant, and I'm going to set this to JSON value. And we're going to go ahead, we're going to equal that to await, and then we're going to equal it to await async storage. That's where we're going to be holding the value dot get item, and then we're going to go ahead, pass in the key of the value, and I'm just going to call this my log info. Awesome, just like that. Perfect. Do a semicolon. Awesome. All right, we're also going to create another constant value. This one is going to just be called JSON value 2. We're going to go ahead and equal that to capital JSON. So we're going to be reformatting that information we get back dot parse, and then inside of it, the JSON value. Awesome. So all this is doing is just converting it to readable text for us. Awesome. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and do an if statement. If parentheses, and then we're going to do JSON value 2, and we're going to do a does not equal null because we want to make sure it exists. Then we're going to go ahead, open it up. Inside that if statement now, we're going to go ahead and do set saved login values. And we're going to go ahead and pass in that value of JSON value 2. Awesome. All right, semicolon. And then we're also going to go ahead and just do set loading app to false. Awesome. Perfect. All right. So now that we got our data, that's great. Now, the next one we're going to do is just a simple catch in case it doesn't work, of course. So let's go ahead and add the catch over here. Let's go ahead and give it just an E to represent the error. Then we're going to go ahead, open it up. Inside the catch, all I want to do is just do an alert. And then just, of course, output the error that we got. Perfect. Awesome. All right, looking good so far. Alrighty. So make sure you got that down. Make sure you got both the use effects. Make sure you got all the constants above. And then, of course, the get data function as well. Awesome. Go ahead and save that. You might get an error for now, but don't worry about that. Alrighty. I will see you in the next video. Alright. So in this video, we're going to go ahead and add the next section to our app.js, the navigation. Let's go ahead, jump right in, and get started. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to go ahead and scroll on down here to our current return in our app.js. And we're actually going to go ahead and create another return as well, depending on if the app is loading or not. So to do that, we're going to go ahead and do an if. We're going to give it some parentheses. Inside the if, we're going to go ahead and do that loading app equals true. Then we're going to go ahead, give it some curly brackets, open that up. And then we're going to go ahead and do another return in here. We're going to give it some parentheses, open those up. Awesome. Now inside this return, we're going to go ahead and add a view. Open that view up. Inside this view, we're going to go ahead and give it a text. Awesome. Inside this text, we're going to go ahead and just put the word loading. Awesome. All right. So let's go back into the opening tag of the view right here. We're going to set a couple things. Inside this view, I'm just going to set a simple style equals curly brackets again. Inside here, I'm just going to go ahead and set a flex colon to 1 comma. And we're also going to go ahead and set a justify content colon. I'm going to set that to a center inside of some quotes, just like that, comma. Make sure the comma's outside of the quotes. And then I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to do an align items as well, colon. I'm going to go ahead and set a center as well. Awesome, comma. And actually, we don't need a comma after that. That's good enough. Awesome. So all this is going to do is just basically set our loading text centered, just to make it look a little nicer. And once, of course, our loading is done and we get our data, then we can evaluate which screen we want to show. Awesome. So let's go back into the opening tag of the text this time. Inside the opening text, let's type in style equal curly brackets again. In here, I'm just going to go ahead and give it a font size. I'm going to set this font size to something like 25, comma. I'm also going to go ahead, do a color. I'm going to set this to something like a blue, make sure it's in quotes as well. Awesome, just like that, perfect. So you can style this however you want. I'm just doing this just to keep it simple, just to show that the screen is loading while, of course, we're searching for our data. Because this is an async function, and it's, of course, initiating with those use effects, it's going to take a minute or two to initiate and get our data. Awesome. All right, let's go ahead on to the next one now, which is going to be our view down here. So we're going to go ahead and add a couple things. I'm actually going to get rid of everything we have in here currently. So I'm going to go ahead and take away everything. Perfect. Inside this return now, once the loading is false, we're going to go ahead and we're going to set the navigation. So navigation container. Perfect. We're going to open that up. Awesome. So in here is going to be all of our navigation items. So let's go ahead and we're going to add another one. This is going to be for stack.navigator. Awesome. Open that up. Perfect. All right. So this is basically the inner workings of the navigator. We have our navigation container, and then inside of our navigation container, we have our stacks of navigations, our stacks of screens. All right. Awesome. So in here now, we can go ahead and describe the screens. But because we're checking to make sure we're logged in or not, we're going to have to add a specific function to check and verify which screen to take us to, either the loading screen or the home screen, or the login screen or the home screen. All right, so to do that, we're going to add some curly brackets right here. Inside these curly brackets, we're going to go ahead and set something like an if statement. So we're going to simply do a saved login values, and we're going to say dot length, and then we're going to do a not double equals 0, because we want to make sure that there's something in the array and it's not just an empty array. So if that's true, we're just going to put a question mark, which is going to be able to tell whether it's true. We want to go ahead and set a stack screen, so we're going to do stack dot screen. And in this stack dot screen, we're going to go ahead and send it to the home page, all right? Assuming that the saved login values is something. Awesome. So let's go ahead and we're going to close this out, /less than, just like that. All right, so in here though, we have to set some variables. First thing we're going to do is I'm going to give it a name, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to call the name of this one home on start, just like that. Perfect. I'm also going to go ahead and I'm going to set some options, which is just some customizations we can do for our stack navigation. The first one I'm going to set is a title. It pops up. Sometimes it might not appear, but if not, we'll just keep it like that. So title, or we need double, that's why. Awesome, there we go. Make sure you got double brackets there. So title, and I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to make the title of this one home. That's going to show on the top of the screen. We're going to go ahead and put a comma. I'm going to get the header left, and that's basically where the arrow can be, and we don't want our player to just be able to go back, or our user. So I'm going to go ahead and set that to maybe just null, so it's not there. Perfect. Comma. We're also going to go ahead and we're going to do a header tint, which is going to give it a nice color for that header. Yeah, header tint color. Control S to reformat it. Oh, no, not yet. All right, well, header tint color, I'm going to go ahead and just make that equal to, let's do purple. Awesome. All right, looking good. Let's keep going over here. All right, so next thing we're going to do is, of course, give it a component to summon which screen we want it to do. So outside of those parentheses, right over here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go, actually make sure we're still inside of that stack. So right there, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to do a component, and I'm going to set that component to the screen we want to load. And I'm going to do the home screen for this one. Awesome. Control S. It should reformat it. I don't know why it's not reformatting. Oh well, we'll just keep going. All right, so the next thing we're going to do right over here. So now if it's true, of course, we're going to go ahead and summon the first screen. That's what this all is doing here. Okay, awesome. Make sure you got that down. All right, so now what if it's not true? And how do we do that? We're just going to go ahead and put a colon there. That's going to kind of be like the or else. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to create another stack. So I'm going to go ahead, do stack dot screen. Awesome. Then I'm going to go ahead and close it out. /less than. I'm going to Control S to save that. There we go. Now it reformatted. Awesome. I'm using the prettier extension, which has done that. You can go ahead and get that right over here in the extensions if you want it. I like it a lot. Let's keep going though. All right. So now that we have this other stack here, we need to put the same information though, but for a different one. All right. So first thing we're going to do is I'm of course going to give it another name. This one I'm going to go ahead and call it log in on start, just like that. Perfect. Awesome. Then we're going to go ahead and also give it some options. So options, remember to do the double brackets like that, curly brackets. Awesome. Inside of here, again, I'm going to give it a title. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set this to login, just like that. Perfect. Comma on the outside. I'm also going to go ahead and do the header left again. I'm going to set that again to null because we don't want to show that. Awesome. Comma. And then we're also going to go ahead and do that header tint color. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set that again to purple. Awesome. All right. And don't forget, outside of the curly brackets, but still inside the closing tag of the stack screen, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to set the component now. And in those curly brackets, I'm going to set which screen I want to load, which is going to be the login screen. Awesome. Control S to reformat. Perfect. All right, looking good so far. Make sure you got all that in there. All right, so once we check and make sure whether or not we're still loading and we direct us to the correct one, such as if it is loading or the value we get back is something, then of course it'll send us to the home screen, assuming we're logged in. And if it doesn't, then it'll send us back to the login screen. Awesome. Perfect. Make sure you got all that. Alrighty. Now let's go ahead and add the other screens we're going to be using throughout this. So outside of the curly bracket over here, we're going to go ahead and add another stack screen. So I'm going to go ahead, capital S, stack.screen. There we go. Closing bracket. There we go. All right. So now in this one, we're just going to go ahead and just use the regular login one because of course we need to call it. And unfortunately, we can't call it through this. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of remake that same one. So we're going to do name again. I'm going to do just login for this name. You can't have the same name twice. So we're going to go ahead, give it some options again. Inside those options, double parentheses, there we are, double curly brackets. We're going to go ahead now and we're going to do the title. Again, I'm going to call it login. Capital L, login, comma. We're also going to go ahead and do that header left again. We're going to set that to null, just like the other ones. Perfect, comma. And then we're going to go ahead and do the header tint color. Find it. Oh, at the top. There we go. Header tint color, and I'm going to set that to purple. Awesome. There we go. Looking good. All right, and then of course, don't forget the component to actually create the stack. So component, and then this one again is just going to be that login screen. Awesome. All right, looking good. Control S to reformat. Perfect. All right, let's go ahead and just copy this whole thing, and we can just go ahead and paste it underneath and change what we need now. All right, so this one here is going to be for the register. So let's change that name right there to register. Then we're going to go ahead, change the title again. Or actually, for this one, we do not want to give it a title. No, we can give it a title, that's fine. I'm going to give it a title of register. And then the header left, of course, we actually want to have that there. So I'm not going to go ahead and change that. I'm just going to go ahead and go back like that. Because we do want to be able to go back in case our user does not want to register, like they mistakenly hit the button or something. But we will go ahead and keep the header title color purple. Perfect. Awesome. All right, let's go ahead and continue. Looking good so far. Oh, actually, you know what? Before we forget, we got to have that component correct. It's not the register one, so make sure it's set to register. There we go. Register screen. Awesome. All right, we got one more screen to create, so make sure you have that down. Let's go ahead and do the next one. It's going to be the final one, which is going to be for the home screen. Let's go ahead and change the name to home. Change the title to home. And we do want to go ahead and keep that left header to null. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that back, paste that in there. Perfect. Go ahead, keep it purple. And then, of course, change the component to the home screen. Awesome. All right. So far, so good. Looking good. Make sure you got all that down. Make sure you got each screen saved. We got the home one. We got the register one. We got the login one. And then also the log on start and then home on start. Awesome. All right. So far, so good. And then, of course, last but not least, don't forget this if loading statement. Awesome. Go ahead and save everything. Control S. You might still get that error, but don't worry about that. Alrighty. I will see you in the next video. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this video and serious about becoming a developer, you should totally consider joining Red Fools Academy. Once you sign up, you will get full access to all of our premium courses, support from myself and the Red Fools Studio team. Our courses include full stack website development, app development, game development, and many more to come. On your first sign up, you get a free 7 days to try it all out. A link will be added to the description, or you can go to the official website at redfoolstudio.com. See you in the lectures! Alright, so in this video, we're going to go ahead and add all of the imports to our login screen. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. So first thing we're going to do is actually create a new folder for all of our screens. So let's right click on our main folder, new folder. I'm going to type in screens with an S, dot, or not dot, just screens for the folder, perfect. Inside of there though, we're going to right click, new file. Let's go ahead and type in login screen.js, enter, perfect. And let's double check the name. I'm going to go into our app.js, scroll up to the top. Make sure it's the same as the one we have. Yep, login screen. Perfect. All right, let's go back into that login screen. Now, a simple thing we can do to get things started, simply enough, we can do an RNFE if you have a specific extension and hit tab. The extension I'm using, if you go over here, it's called ES7 plus React native snippets. It's this one right here. I highly suggest you download this also. It just makes life a little bit easier and can auto-generate certain code for you. Okay, awesome. So install this if you want. If not, no worries. You can still go ahead and just copy what I have here. It's just a simple starting point for us. Perfect. So make sure you copy this down if you don't have the extension. Awesome. And again, simply enough, I'm going to put it right up here so you know what it is. // just to comment it out. It's just RNFE if you have the extension. Okay, awesome. All right. So let's go ahead and add the imports that we need for this. So inside of our import with the view and text, we're going to add a couple extra here. I'm going to go ahead and do a comma. Other than the view and text, we're also going to have the style sheet one. So let's go ahead and add that style sheet. Perfect. Comma. We're also going to go ahead and do the text input, capital T, text input, comma. We're also going to go ahead and do a pressable as well for our buttons. Perfect. Comma. And then I think that should be it. So you don't need a final comma for that pressable. Awesome. Go ahead, Control S to save that all. Perfect. All right. So we're also going to go ahead underneath that import for React. We're also going to go ahead and we're going to do another import, curly brackets. We're going to go ahead and do the use state for this. Go ahead, use state should auto-populate from React. Awesome. Make sure to get rid of that extra curly bracket. All right, inside we're also going to go ahead, do a comma, and we're going to use the use effect as well. So go ahead, make sure you have that in there. Perfect. All right, below that, we're going to go ahead, and we're also going to do another import, curly brackets, and this time I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add the get auth. All right, and then I'm going to do a comma, and we're also going to go ahead and do the sign in with email and password, and if it will autocorrect, which it might not until we get the from, so I'm going to add the from, comma, or quotes, I'm going to do Firebase / and then auth, right there, perfect. All right, and let's go ahead and retype these in and make sure they import automatically. Get auth, there we go, right there, comma, and I'm going to go ahead and do, again, sign in with password, or with email and password. Perfect, just like that. Awesome. All right, make sure you got that in there. Perfect. All right, below that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do another import. We're going to go ahead and do app from within quotes of a dot because we're going back to files / and then we're going to go into that Firebase JS that we created because remember we need to use that app here to initiate the functionality, such as the sign in with email and password and the get auth. So make sure you have that in there. Perfect. All right. Next thing we're going to import, which is going to be the last one, is going to be for the async storage. And that's going to help us do the local save. Perfect. Just like that. It should auto-populate. Awesome. All right. Make sure you have all that in there, just like that. Control S. Alrighty. That's it for this video. I will see you in the next one. All right, so in this video, we're going to go ahead and add all the functions to our app's login page. Let's go ahead and jump right in. let's go ahead and continue. So right underneath our constant login screen, we're going to go ahead and add a couple things. And actually, before we do that, we need to go ahead and pass in a variable for our navigation, because we are going to be navigating also within this login screen. To do that, simple enough, all you got to do is give it some curly brackets, and then we can go ahead and pass in navigation. All right, just like that. Awesome. All right, make sure you got that in there. All right, now we can go ahead right underneath there, though, and create some constant variables we're going to be using throughout our functions. The first one, I'm going to go ahead and call this one email, comma. Then we'll do set email. We're going to go ahead, equal that. I'm going to equal it just to use state, some parentheses with empty quotes inside of it, just like that. Awesome. All right, let's go ahead and create another one. We're going to do another constant, give it some brackets. This time I'm going to call it password, comma, set capital P password, just like that. Awesome. Go ahead again, equal, and then again, use state, and then inside of there, empty quotes. Perfect. Just like that. Underneath that, we're going to create another constant. This constant, we're going to go ahead and call it log in values, just like that, comma. And then we're also going to go ahead and do a set log in values. Awesome. All right, equal. And then we're going to go ahead, and this time we're going to do, again, use state. And instead of parentheses with empty quotes inside of it, we're going to go ahead and just give it an empty array. All right, perfect. So just an empty set of brackets, just like that. Awesome. All right, one more. We're going to go ahead, create a constant, give it some brackets. In here now, we're going to go ahead, and I'm going to call this if saved pressed, comma. Then we're going to go ahead and do set if saved pressed. Awesome. Then we're going to go ahead, equal that to a use state. And I'm going to go ahead and keep this as false on start. Awesome. All right, make sure you got all that in there. Now we're going to go ahead and use some of these within some functions. So let's go ahead and create an async function. And this one's going to be for the sign in. All right, so sign in, give it some parentheses. Then we're going to go ahead, open it up, curly brackets. All right, so inside the sign in, we're going to have a couple things happen. First thing we need to do is do constant auth equal get auth, and then inside of there, the app. All right, awesome. And again, we're getting this from our Firebase because we need to set and get our current authentication and our connection to our cloud. All right, so make sure you have that in there. Then we're going to go ahead and use that sign in with email and password. Go ahead, tab, get that in there. All right, inside of here, we need to set some things. So we give it some parentheses. We have to go ahead and set the auth. So we have auth already described. We're also going to go ahead and set the email as email, and then the password as password. Awesome. All right, then we're going to go ahead, and I'm going to hit enter and do a dot, and then do a then. All right, then we're going to go ahead, give it some parentheses. Inside those parentheses, keep them empty, do an equal less than, and then open it up. Because of course, if this is successful, we want something to happen. So if it is successful and our post is successful with the sign in with email and password, then we're going to go ahead and do a console log. Inside the console log, I'm just going to go ahead and say user signed in, just so we can track it. Awesome. Then we're also going to go ahead and set a variable. We're going to call it new auth. All right, and I'm going to make it equal to some curly brackets because we're going to have numerous values in here as this variable. And what we're going to do is we're going to set email, and I'm going to actually put two L's because we can't have it as the same variable that we described. So I'm just going to call it email with two L's. And then I'm going to call it email, comma, and then password. And again, I'm just going to give it two letters on the end. So just another D back there, colon. And then we're going to set that password as, of course, our passed in password use state. Awesome. All right, make sure you got that there. Now, before we get out of this, then we're also going to go ahead and we're going to do the set if saved press. I'm going to go ahead now and set that to true. Awesome. Then we're going to go ahead, last but not least, we're going to go ahead and do set login values. And we're going to set those values to our new auth values that we just created right up here. Perfect. So all we're doing is we're just signing in, and then we're going to go ahead and set our email to the email variable, and then password to the password variable, setting the set if pressed to true, and then of course, then passing those into our current empty array. Awesome. All right. So after that then, all right, right over here, I'm going to go ahead and just do a simple dot catch, just like that. We're going to go ahead, give it some parentheses and then some inner parentheses. In the inner parentheses, I'm going to go ahead and just pass in error. Then I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to do an equal less than, and then open that up. Inside of there, I'm just going to do a simple alert in case we have a problem, and then I'm going to pass in that error so we can read the problem. Awesome. All right, perfect. So that's it for our sign in function right here. Now we got to go ahead and create the next one. So make sure you got all that down. Make sure it looks good. Perfect. All right, let's scroll on down here. All right, the next one we're going to be making now, this one's going to be for the store data, because now that we signed in, we want to save that data so our user doesn't have to keep signing in if he's already signed in. Let's go ahead and do that. It's another async function. So async function. Then we're going to go ahead and call it store data. Then we're going to go ahead, give it some empty parentheses, and then open up curly brackets. Awesome. So first thing we're going to do is I'm going to put a simple console.log. Within there, I'm going to go ahead and just put our login values. Awesome. I'm going to do another console log as well. .log parentheses. This time I'm just going to put the words working so we know it is working. Awesome. These console logs are optional. I just like to have it so I can track what I'm doing. Awesome. Let's keep going. So now we're going to go ahead and do a try. Open that up with some curly brackets. Within that try, we're going to go ahead and create a new constant. I'm going to call this saved values. Go ahead, equal. And then we're going to do login values, semicolon. Then underneath that, we're going to create another constant. I'm going to call this JSON value. We're going to go ahead and equal that to an await async storage dot set item. Go ahead, open up some parentheses. Inside this parentheses, we're going to pass in our key. Now, if you remember, we set this key in the last couple videos in our app.js. Let's go ahead and find what that is. I just put my log info for that. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that name. I'm going to paste that in our quotes, just like that. Awesome. All right. So then we're going to go ahead and do a comma. And then I'm going to do capital JSON dot stringify. And then, of course, give it some parentheses and put saved values in there. Awesome. All right. Looking good. All right. So I'm going to put a semicolon outside of that try. I'm also going to go ahead and do a console log. And actually, this is not part of, this was just part of that constant, not part of the try. So I'm going to do a console log. And I'm going to go ahead, open it up. Inside of it, I'm just going to say data saved. Perfect. I'm going to go ahead, semicolon. Then I'm going to go ahead and do set email. And I'm going to set email back to nothing. Perfect. I'm also going to go ahead and do set password. And again, I'm going to set that to nothing as well. Awesome. All right. And then I'm going to go ahead and do navigation dot navigate .navigate, and then I'm going to go ahead and pass in some parentheses. I'm going to pass in some quotes. I'm going to send it now to home. Awesome. Do we spell this correctly? Navigation. Scroll back up. It should be right. Oh, we're getting red. Expected a comma. Should not be expecting a comma. Oh, that's because we still have it inside the parentheses. So go ahead and get rid of that. Put that there. There we go. Awesome. Semicolon outside. All right, looking good so far. I like it. All right, so then I'm going to go ahead at the end of that navigation one. We're going to do a return, and I'm going to return the JSON value. Awesome. All right, so outside now, over here on the try, at the end of the bracket for it, we're going to go ahead and do a catch. And I'm going to go pass in some parentheses for the error. I'm just going to put E to represent the error. I'm going to go ahead and open it up, and then I'm going to put the alert, parentheses, E. Awesome. Semicolon. All right, so far so good. Make sure you got all that down. That's going to be the function for storing the data once our player logs in, our user. All right, let's go ahead and scroll down. All right, we're going to create one more, and this is just going to be a simple use effect that's going to track whether or not we have data to store the data. So let's go ahead and do a use effect. Inside this use effect, we're going to give some parentheses and then some more parentheses. We're going to do equal, less than, curly brackets, open it up. Then on the outside of this curly bracket over here, I'm going to do a comma and then give it an array. Inside the array, I'm just going to go ahead and do a login values, because instead of restarting when the app first opens up, I only want it to initiate things inside of here when the value of this changes. Awesome. So that's why we're having this use effect here. All right, inside this use effect, I'm just going to put an if statement. If save data pressed equals true. Then we're going to go ahead, open that up. Inside of there, simply we're going to do the store data, give it some empty parentheses, semicolon at the end. We're going to start to run that because now, of course, we have data, so we can run it. And then the last thing we're going to do is set item, or set if pressed back to false, because we already have it as true, so we don't want to redo it. All right, perfect. There we go. Awesome. All right, make sure you got that down. Make sure you got that use effect down right here. Make sure you have everything in the store data function. And then also the sign in as well. And then last but not least, of course, all the constants we're going to be using. Awesome. All right, you still might get an error, but no worries. That'll get fixed in the near future. Go ahead, save what you got. All right, let's continue on. I will see you in the next video. All right, so in this video, we're going to go ahead and add all the elements to our login screen on our login app. Let's go ahead and jump right in. All right, let's go ahead and get started. All right, let's go ahead and scroll on down here to our return. All right, before we get started in the return, we're going to go ahead and create a simple style sheet right under here. Let's go ahead and add that. We're going to just create a constant for that. I'm going to go ahead and do styles with an S equals style sheet dot create. Give it some parentheses and then some curly brackets inside of it. Awesome. All right, so make sure you got that there. Perfect. Now let's go back to our return right over here. So I'm going to go ahead and take away that text that's inside of it right there. Inside the opening of the view tag right here, I'm going to go ahead and set style equal curly brackets to styles with an S. Then I'm going to do dot, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set this to, let's just set it to container. So I'm going to do container. Awesome. We'll create that later. Then we're going to go ahead inside the view that we have, we're going to go ahead and pass in a text input. Let's go ahead, create one of those. I'm going to do a closing tag inside of it, so we only need one tag. All right, inside this text input, we're going to add a couple things. The first thing we're going to add, of course, is the style. Style equals curly brackets, styles with an S, dot, and then I'm going to go ahead and just call it text input, just like that. Awesome. All right, looking good so far. Still inside the same text input tag, we're going to go ahead and we're also going to add a placeholder. I'm going to set this placeholder to enter your email. Awesome. Then I'm going to go ahead and also set a value, and I'm going to set the value to curly brackets of the email. Awesome. Make sure you have that. Then after that, we're just going to go ahead and do an onChange text. So onChange text, just like that. We're going to go ahead and set that to some parentheses of text. Then we're going to do an equal, less than, And then we're going to go ahead and set that to the set password, or set email for this one actually. I'm going to Control S to reformat that. So set email, and then I'm going to go ahead and pass in the text, which is representing the text inside of the text input. Awesome. All right, make sure you have that there. Perfect. All right, looking good so far. Then I'm going to go ahead and copy this whole entire text input. And we're just going to paste it right underneath. Perfect. And I'm going to go ahead and change what we need to. Now for the password, so I'm going to change that placeholder to password. I'm going to go ahead and change the value here to password as well. And then instead of set email, I'm going to do set password, just like that. Awesome. All right, make sure you got all that there. Perfect. Then underneath the text input for the password, we're going to go ahead and create a pressable. All right. Inside the pressable tags, I'm going to go ahead and set a text as well. All right, going back to the opening tag of the pressable. This time we're going to go ahead, give it a style. Equal curly brackets, styles with an S, dot. And then I'm going to go ahead and just call this custom button that we're going to use over again, basically. And then we're also going to go ahead and do an on press. And I'm going to set that on press to a sign in. Awesome. So when we click anything inside the pressable tags, such as the text, it's going to go ahead and initiate that sign in, which is going to go ahead and do exactly what we want it, where it's going to take that, of course, value of email and then the value of password, and then do those two functions of signing our user in. Awesome. All right, let's keep going though. So now inside the text right here, I'm going to go ahead in the opening tag. I'm going to go ahead and just give it a style, equal curly brackets, styles with an S, dot. And I'm just going to call this button text, which we'll probably use again. And then inside the two tags of text though, I'm just going to simply put sign in. Awesome. All right, looking good so far. I like it. All right, let's go ahead now and copy this whole pressable again and paste it underneath it, just like that. All right, now this pressable is going to be for the navigator to go to the register. All right, so to do that, pretty simple. We can leave the style the same, but we are going to change the on press. Specifically, we're going to change what's inside of it, so I'm going to get rid of that sign in this one. And instead of that, I'm going to go ahead, pass in an empty set of parentheses, equal, less than. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set navigator, or navigation, dot navigator, or just navigate is what we've been using it. And then I'm going to go ahead and set the name of the one we want to go to, which I'm going to do register. Awesome. All right, and that's how you can basically have a button inside another screen that still uses that same navigation that we have in our app.js. All right, simply enough, it's pretty easy, just like that. Awesome. And of course, we will also want to change what the button says in the text. I'm going to go ahead and change this to just register. Awesome. All right, you can save what you got. All right, in the next video, we'll go over the style and then actually see the output of all this. Awesome. I will see you in the next video. All right, so in this video, we're going to go ahead and add some of the style to our login page. Let's go ahead and jump right in. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So first thing we're going to do is create those missing screens, so we'll stop getting these errors down here and actually view what we're changing with our style. So I'm going to right click on screens, new file. I'm going to go ahead and do one for the home screen. So home screen, capital S, .js, just like that. All right, go ahead, create that. Then we're going to go ahead and use that auto-generated code. So I'm going to go back to my login screen, scroll up. It's going to be that RNFE. So let's go back here. Type in RNFE if you have that extension, tab. Awesome. If you don't have that extension, of course, go ahead and copy everything in here. Should be pretty simple, just a couple imports, a constant, and then an export default, the name. Awesome. Go ahead and make sure you have that there. Control S to save. Let's go ahead and create the register one now as well. Right click, new file. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do register screen.js. Go ahead, create that. Let's go ahead and type in RNFE again, tab, perfect. So make sure you got this down. If you don't have that extension, go ahead, save what you got, perfect. All right, so Now, if we go ahead and open up our app, we're going to get this error, and it's going to keep us on loading. Now, why is it doing that? Because it's actually waiting for some data, so it can decide which page to take us to. If we go back to our app.js, it's of course making sure its length is not or 0. So currently we're getting null back, and that's not initiating everything and getting us off this loading true to false, so we can start the next page. All right, to fix that, let's go ahead and scroll up. Let's go to our current if statement, which is this JSON value 2 does not equal null. We're going to go ahead and change that to equals null. So triple equals null. If it does triple equal null, then we're going to go ahead and set this to an empty array. So just like that. Perfect. Then we're going to add an else, because if it doesn't equal null, we're going to go ahead, copy what we got, paste this here, and then again, change the JSON value 2 back to what we want. Just like that. Go ahead and save that, Control S. Awesome. All right, make sure you got that down. Then if you go back and open up our app, we're going to be at the login page. Perfect. And as you can tell, we don't currently have any styles. That's why it's all kind of scrunched up right here. So let's go ahead and add those styles. Let's go back into our login screen. Let's scroll on down to our styles right over here. Perfect. Let's open that up. All right. So we're going to be adding a couple styles, and we're going to be reusing these throughout the app. So we're going to go ahead and do the first one, which I'm going to do as button. For the button, I'm going to go ahead and just give it a width of 200, comma, and then I'm going to also go ahead and give it a margin top. I'm going to get that margin top a style of 10, just like that. Perfect. All right, let's go ahead. Next one, don't forget your comma after it, or it's not going to work. All right, so the next one we're going to do is this going to be for the overall container. So go ahead, create that, give it some curly brackets. Inside the container, we're going to set it to flex 1, which is just going to help it organize and make it centered. Then we're going to go ahead and do an align items also. I'm going to go ahead and set that to center as well, comma. Then we're also going to go ahead and we're going to give it some padding. And I'm going to set that padding to 10. Awesome. All right, let's go ahead, save that. Should help reorganize a couple things. Perfect. Let's keep going. All right, next one we're going to do is going to be the custom button. Custom button. Let's go ahead, open that up. In our custom button, I'm going to go ahead and give it a width. And I'm going to set that width to in quotes of 70%. Just like that. Make sure to give it quotes or it's not going to work. Then we're going to go ahead and we're also going to give it a background color. I'm going to set that background color to purple. Perfect, comma. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a border radius. I'm going to set that border radius to 10, comma. Then we're also going to go ahead and we're going to give it a margin. I'm going to set that margin to about a 15. Awesome. Perfect. Let's go ahead and save that, see how that looks. I like it. Let's keep going though. We need to edit the text. So let's go ahead next. Let's go ahead and do button text. Open that up. All right, inside of there, we're going to go ahead. We're going to add a color. I'm going to give it the color of white. Make sure it's in quotes. Then we're also going to go ahead. And I'm going to give this one now some font size. I'm going to change the font size to about a 30, comma. We're also going to go ahead and I'm going to do font weight. I'm going to change that font weight to bold, comma. I'm also going to go ahead and I'm going to change the text align to center. Just like that. Perfect. Let's save what we got. Open up our app. There we go. Looking better. I like it. All right. Let's keep going. All right. For the next one now, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the text input now. So text input. Open that up. Inside the text input, we're going to add a couple things. We're going to go ahead and give it a font size as well. Give the font size, I'm going to do a 30, comma. Then we're also going to go ahead. We're going to do a text align again. Set that to center, comma. We're also going to go ahead. We're going to give it a margin. I'm going to do a margin of 5. comma. Let's also go ahead and give it some padding. I'm going to give mine a padding of 10, comma. I'm going to go ahead and do a border bottom width. Just give it a nice little underline. I'm going to go ahead and make that a 2. Then we're also going to go ahead and I'm going to give it a border color. I'm going to make that border color just black. Awesome, comma. Then last thing we're going to do is I'm going to give it a width, and I'm going to set that width to 80%. Awesome. Control save. Make sure you got all these down. Text input, the button text, the custom button, container, and the button. Awesome. All right, go ahead, open it up. There we go. I like it. And remember, you can customize the style as much as you want. That's completely up to you. I just think this looks pretty nice and simple. All right, don't forget to save. I will see you in the next video.